First, well actually this is the second event now in the building, because we had an event earlier on the day with the Tibetan community, and it's a great honour to welcome His Eminence Ling Rinpoche to the building. He's already been in the building, and I think later on in the day he will do an official blessing ceremony to open the Buddhist Centre, so that's quite special. We hadn't thought of that one. That was requested by the attendants, which was great. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about the project and just share some of the the joy it's been creating this project together. And then we've got some speakers to just do a little bit of explanation about their part in the project. We have our patron here, David Lascelles, the Earl of Harwood, David Midgley, who is the founder of GMA Leeds here. We have Ken Lunn, who's the chair of our trustees, so he will also say something. And we also have a guest star who's here on the video, which I'll show later. So just some practical things before we start the official things. The fire exits, should there be a fire, straight through this door and the entranceway you came in, or the other one is through these doors and the door on the left. It's all clearly marked, because I know I've been doing my fire risk assessment this week. And if you need any help with first aid at any point in the day, there are first aid boxes at reception where you came in. Fiona, who's our events coordinator, is she here right now? She'll be preparing the buffet, so she'll explain about what happens after this session, about the buffet. The upstairs isn't ready. I had hoped in my mind that they would be ready. It was a bit of a fantasy to have 3 bedrooms and a gompa ready upstairs for this weekend. So unfortunately I can't show you upstairs because it's not safe. There's nails poking out the floor and there's wires where you could garrote yourself as you go up the stairs. So please don't go upstairs if you value your life. And just stay down here, it's much safer. We've got the cafe, we've got the shop. Is Jeannie here and Mark here to explain about what the shop opening hours are? So Jeannie, when is the shop open today?
It is open, well now just at lunchtime.
Just now, lunchtime?
Not now.
Between 1 and 2? Great. Great. So without further ado then, let me just go through this presentation. It's not too long, I promise. The first thing to mention is this centre belongs to a worldwide organisation called the FPMT, which stands for the Foundation of the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. A bit of a mouthful, but it's basically preserving a type of Buddhism, a Tibetan type in this case. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche is the spiritual director, so he's my boss. And he appointed me to be director about 3 years ago. Some previous directors are actually here, aren't they? I think David Midgley, who I've already mentioned, was the first director. Gabrielle Hamilton, who's here, was a previous director. Wendy and Steve were the previous directors before me, so Steve is here. Hand up, Steve. The only one we're missing is Jan Metcalf, who lives in London now, so we've got her family here, of course, Sarah. So without Lama Zopa Rinpoche, there's no way this kind of project would happen, because we belong to a worldwide family, and as we found out over the last few months, people from all over FPMT family in London, in Bath, in Land of Joy, or other centres have all helped. We had a crew from our centre in Liverpool come over for a weekend, and they've donated lots of cleaning items. I could kind of go on and on about the kind of generosity of people in the last few months. And Lama Zopa was took over as spiritual director from Lama Yeshe. So Lama Yeshe is the founder. He's the one how it all started. So every time we do an event or we have an altar, for example, you'll see on the altar we've set up here, Lama Yeshe is on the left there, Lama Zopa is the current spiritual director on the right. And then the other Lama we should mention at the beginning here is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So all Lamas that we follow here would count the Dalai Lama as their teacher, so as we do here. So hopefully he'll come and visit here, which would be nice. Yes. I'm sure you've all seen the information that I've shared over the past year about this project, that right on the front of the building, on the top there, 1935, and then Clyde works on the bottom. Very auspicious year, the year the Dalai Lama was born. So I'm hoping, we can try and get around. It's open, though. You have to come and visit. It's just made for you. So I'm not sure how it works to get him here, but we'll try. So it's important that we mention right at the beginning why we're doing this at all. I mean, it's not just to have a nice shop, a nice cafe, and have a cup of coffee. We have a bigger purpose here. And recently, in the trustees' meetings, well, it was about a year ago we started. Only recently we heard it was confirmed that we changed slightly what's called the objects or the aims of the charity, because we are a registered charity as well as a Buddhist centre. And we changed it to this after much debate and public consultation. Some of you may remember the meeting we had to change that. And just this week, actually, the Charity Commission confirmed that these were our new objects. So this is hot off the press. This is the new ones officially. The promotion of well-being, meditation and public benefit in accordance with Buddhist principles, and the preservation of the Buddhist Mahayana tradition throughout the north of England and elsewhere. So you can see we've got a bit of the foundation of the preservation of the Mahayana tradition in there. And what we try to do is try to emphasise the two parts of how the charity's working now. We felt it was important to reflect that. So well-being, meditation and public benefit, a secular approach to meditation and well-being. It's not just about the religious angle. The old objects are a bit about, faith, and it wasn't quite what we wanted to convey. So we've just changed it slightly so that those people who wanted to kind of just dip into a secular part of the programme felt comfortable. And then the Buddhist, in line with Buddhist principles, and then the preservation of the Mahayana tradition, because we're also here to preserve the tradition of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan Mahayana tradition, which comes from India, the land of tradition, so that's part of our heritage, the Sanskrit tradition. So we'll have programs here that kind of cover both of that, the Buddhist angle, the rituals. We'll also have classes that help people who are not happy with the religious language, lunchtime meditations, a bit like that, calming the mind, just talking about mindfulness, for example. The Dalai Lama's approach to secular ethics. The idea was that down here in this part of the building was going to be the secular space, but because upstairs isn't ready, this is going to be, multifunction. You can see we painted it quite bare in here, quite white, quite neutral, apart from the tankers and the glorious Tibetan colours. And upstairs is going to be the kind of Tibetan temple. That will be very heavy in the Tibetan colours and the ornaments. So that's the long-term goal, but obviously it didn't quite get ready in time. So that's just important to think about as we go through this project and this journey together, that this is why we're doing it, is to help people understand that their minds are the cause of happiness and the minds are the cause of suffering, as Lama Zopa put it, as Lama Yeshe put it also. A little bit about Jamang Leeds. 1996 was when it started, wasn't it, David?
Yes, we
96.
got out commission just before the end of that year from Lama Zopa.
Right.
And yes.
I think it was you that asked Geshitashi about the location, right, in the beginning? Was that? I think Geshitashi explained, somebody suggested that Leeds was a good location for a Buddhist centre, and he thought, it's right bang in the middle of the country. You can get down from Scotland, up from London, east and west coast, kind of right in the central. So it was an ideal location, and Geshitashi said he supported the centre all those years because it was a great location and many people could get here from other places. It started in Swarthmore, that's what I've recently heard. Some people went to class.
I'll have to correct a few of these small points.
Later on, David will correct my errors. Jan's living room, Jan Metcalf I mentioned. You may remember Jan's living room. Some people remember that one? Jan's living room? Yeah, right. Wingate Business Centre, Army, that was Gabrielle's time. Then it was St Paul's Street, ×2, because we went in there and then we moved down the road a few months later for various reasons. That was Wendy's time and Steve's time in the city centre. So then we moved to York Place, not by choice, but because the landlord wanted the building back and we had to move. This is the kind of time when I joined. And then it was about 2 years ago we had a strategic planning meeting that we decided to put all of our efforts into buying our own building so we don't get messed about by landlords and have to move around, etc. And it had been on the kind of agenda for a long time. Trustees and all members will know how we nearly got there and then it fell through and then there wasn't energy. And somehow this time was the right time and it kind of took off when everyone kind of suggested what they wanted in the building. And our first thought was city centre, obviously where we knew, where people could easily get to, but it became quite quickly apparent that it's very expensive in the city centre for what we wanted. Can you imagine this size of building in the city centre, how much that's going to cost? We saw this fantastic place called Cathedral Chambers with a gorgeous bar on the top, should be beautiful compa. Serious offers of $1 million. So our budget, we were thinking of 250,000 at the time. And then we were very kind to get sponsorship from a donor, a nun actually who is in France, who gave us a donation of 100,000, and that kind of snowballs. You know, we suddenly, oh wow, okay, this is actually might happen. And then later she gave us 50,000, and then other people's donations came in. At that point, we realised we had enough money to put a mortgage deposit down and get a good mortgage. I had hoped we'd be able to raise the whole amount and not have to worry about a mortgage, but I think it was worth it to go the risk of a mortgage. Actually, the mortgage payments on this place are only slightly more expensive than the 1,000 square foot in the city centre, as it turned out. So there we go. And then the extra donations that came on top of that from yourselves and other people around the world, that covered the first 2 months of refit which we've done, as you'll see. So Bob Charlton, who you may know, who's the chauffeur for Ling Rinpoche this weekend, he and I came to see this building the first time in January last year. And a cold winter, a dark evening. It was a bit scary around here, walking on my own, trying to find it. I thought, oh, what are we doing here? And I had to kind of fight to get to see it. One agent said it wasn't for sale. Others said, well, they weren't sure. So in the end, I phoned Joe Brown's directly, the people who own it. And I said, is this for sale or not? Because your agents seem to think it's not for sale. I said, yes, it's for sale. What are they saying? We've been trying to sell this building for 8 years. It's not for sale. Poor man, he's been trying to sell this building, and the agent's saying, no, it's not for sale. So I'm glad I did that. You know, it's this kind of Buddhist teachings where you really have to check information that you're being told. Don't just take it at face value. You know, my Buddhist training kicked in. So I didn't believe what the agent said. I went to the owner and said, so it is for sale. Great. So can we have a viewing? And then it took a little while, and they were busy. And Bob and I came and saw it, and I thought, yes. Okay, I saw the corridor, the rooms, thought, this is going to be great, I think this is going to be the right one. But there's a lot of obstacles to get over, and a lot of checking, a lot of research, risk assessments, are people going to come, etc. So the trustees, I put the trustees through hell the last year. Trustees. Some of them may remember some meetings last year. It got a bit scary. But you know, we've all worked hard to kind of do the research, and then we took the community with us as much as we could to allay the fears. And here we are all this time later. This is the cafe and reception area. We're going to do before and after shots now. Everyone likes before and after shots. Right? So this is the cafe. It had this awful blue carpet, these bright blue walls. It had a little kitchen unit here. There wasn't much going on. And as you can see now, this is Glorious Cafe. Ta-da! The cafe counter we had to go to Scarborough for. It was 200 quid, which is a great deal, but we had to schlep all the way to Scarborough in a van. We got lost and ended up down a farm track and nearly crashed the van, but it was really worth it. We had to cut the wires to get in. It was all drama. The corridor here is pretty boring. You know, it's that we took up the carpet in the cafe, as you can see, and I have to mention one volunteer in particular, which is Jay Simpson. Is he here? He's hiding probably. I'm just talking about you, dear. So it was fortunate or unfortunate, I'm not sure, that Jay resigned from his job just as we bought the building. Great for us, but I'm not sure for his bank balance. And 5-6 days a week over the last 2 months, Jay has been in here, hammering walls, knocking down things, putting things together, painting, you name it, toilets, he's done it all. And without him, we wouldn't have this project together. So thank you, Jay, for that. This is the corridor now. Look, all ready for the buffet, which we'll have after lunch. We had some great advice from interior designers, and we have a friend in Berlin who helped with the design, and also in Spain, Lou Beaumont, who you may know. She kind of came and helped us with the colours and choice of furniture. This is another area, the hall, which we're sat in now. It's not so clear, this picture. I know I can't do proper blackout, but they had this big line of points in the middle. They had black curtains everywhere because they had a Christmas party in here, so there was Christmas trees and baubles everywhere. There was black. There was kind of dark green walls. There was blue walls here. There was chalkboards everywhere where they've been putting. This was a call centre for a clothing company, so they had little targets to meet and all that nonsense. And clothes rails, and it was just. You can see the potential, and the windows are all these plastic that had kind of faded and gone awful colours. And here we are now, look, beautiful room. As you can see, you don't need the picture, you're already in this room. Replacing the windows was a great idea. That let a lot more light in, and we've put some privacy here for the bottom half, obviously. So One of the first things when we moved in was this corner here was gushing in water. You may remember it was just Eastwest who we came around and saw. This was one of the big things that we would try to get fixed in the beginning. We've had about 4 roofers look at this, and some we paid and some we just thought, no way, that's way too much. And in the end, it was Jay's partner, John, who was up on the roof with paint, and silicone and sheets and cleaning that actually seems to have fixed it. So thank you to John also for that one. So just don't look too carefully in this corner, because you'll see I've drawn attention to it. Joe Brown's, there's nobody from Joe Brown's, is there today? I had invited all the 3 directors that we met. Simon and Brown is, I think, the CEO, and then Darren, financial officer, and Tony, who we worked with quite a lot for the purchase. They both sent their wishes, but I guess they couldn't make it today. Without them, we couldn't have done it. You know, they were so kind right from the beginning. They understood what our project was, and they were keen for us to get it, and they helped us, and they reduced the price. They even rented the warehouse space from us at the back, which is going to cover our mortgage for the first year and a half, which is great, so we have time to kind of get sorted. And they've been so helpful, really. Everything we need to know about the building, they've been there, and they're just over the road. Their big warehouse is down there, so if you need some clothes for the summer and your holidays, do think about buying from Joe Brown's. Some of their stock is in our warehouse. And just yesterday, we just managed to get it in time, the sign for the front. The logo was designed by somebody who is here. Is he here? Mark Gatter. And up there, yes. So Mark is an old student of Lama Zopa's and been working in many FPMT centres over the years. He was director last at Land of Joy, where I was also. And also a very talented graphic designer and software expert. If anyone needs any advice about software, go and see Mark. You have to pay for it though. So you can't see it here, but as you leave, you'll see that all these parts of the logo have meaning. The dragons holding jewels, the world, the lotus, the little wish-fulfilling jewels here, the leaves have meaning, the lotus, the eternal knot here. There's also supposed to be orbs, but we couldn't get the printers to cope with that. Then it collapsed. So it's quite a complicated logo, as you can see. So to get them to do it at all was a miracle. And obviously the name came from Lama Zopa, Jamyang. Jamyang, if you don't know, it means gentle voice. It is tied in with Buddha's wisdom aspect. So that's Jamyang. So over the last 3 months, we've had over 150 volunteers here helping, right from the beginning. So a lot of you are here, and we had people coming from next door. We had one lady who just lived down the road who came and helped with the painting. We had people bringing furniture in. We've had people give advice. We've had so many people from FPMT family come and help. A lot of you are here already, which is great. We've had people we haven't seen for a long time want to get involved. So many people. We have people from the University of Leeds coming. So many areas. We spent a lot of time knocking down the wall upstairs, which you won't get to see because it's a mess. And that took us a while. We've had people offering free time, free advice, donations, you name it, we've had it. It's just been stunning. The amount we raised for this project was 240,000 overall. Money's still coming in. 25 countries were involved, donations, that's referring to. As far as Australia, we had a couple from Australia who just passed by. They'd been supporting us for a while, and then they just popped in one day. It's like, oh, you're here. That's nice to see you. So we showed them around, and maybe they'll stay. And how we started this project was by asking Lama's advice, how we're going to make this happen. And from a Buddhist point of view, the way it happened, nothing happens without positive karma, positive merit, sometimes called, positive energy, you could say. So we asked advice about how we're going to create this positive karma to make this possible. So we asked Dagger Rinpoche when he was just visiting shortly after our strategic planning meeting, and he said, buy these 21 Tara statues, rely on Tara practice, Tara praises, Tara mantras. Tara is an aspect of the Buddha that gets things done, and swiftly. So we, thanks to your donations, we bought the 21 Tara statues, and you'll see them in the library room over here. Do take a look at those today. They came from Nepal pretty swiftly. And we did lots of mantras, lots of practices. Some people here who did Tara retreats for us. People all over the world have been doing Tara mantras. And the last time we submitted, count was over 500,000. So pretty stunning. Now we have to. Now the hard work starts, though. Now we've opened it. What do we do next? So the idea is that we create something special here for people to have a bit of calm, a bit of a peace, trying to understand their minds are really important to how we experience the world and the environment. And just being a part of this in some way is really helpful to understand that. You don't have to come to classes, you could just volunteer. So if you know people who might like to come and volunteer, it would be great, because now we've got this big space, we need to make sure it functions correctly. We've done all the maintenance and got it all open and painted, but now it has to run. So volunteer in the cafe, and the shop and reception, those are 3 big areas. You could do a shift of 2 or 3 hours, for example. Jeannie is our shop manager, and you saw earlier Celia here? Celia at the back there, she's our bookshop manager. So if you can offer some help in the shop, that would be great. Mark is our cafe manager, who you'll see busy in the kitchen, and he obviously needs volunteers. We probably only need 1 or 2 people to run the cafe at any one time, but if you can offer some time in the cafe, that'd be great. Otherwise, we won't be able to open it, obviously. And reception, it's important we have people on reception so that when people come, they feel greeted, they feel looked after, we can show them where the areas they want to go to are, we have meetings, etc. Another way you can support is by becoming a friend. A friend is a membership scheme, essentially, where you just donate a monthly amount from £12 or upwards. And there are, I think it's about 45 people we have on that scheme at the moment who support us regularly. And that is really helpful, because a stable, regular income will help us maintain the building. Because now we've got more expenses than before. We never had a building to maintain before. It was the landlord's responsibility. But now we are the landlord, so it's our responsibility. So there's a lot of issues that come with the building, I'm sure you all know. So if you can support us that way, that would be really helpful. There are leaflets on reception if you'd like to get involved with that. Do join our Facebook and email list so you can catch up with the news, what's going on, our events, etc., in our programme. And maybe Fiona will mention a bit later, but we have big events coming up already. In 2 months' time, we'll have another Lama, Dagger Rinpoche, who I mentioned about the Tara statues. He'll be coming to visit. I hope I'll get the Gompa ready by then, I'm optimistic. In the Tibetans, they say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So that's what I'm hoping for the best of that one. So basically that's the presentation. There is somebody else who would like to say something, who you may know. Someone who supported the centre for a long time was Geshe Tashi, who recently became the abbot of a monastery in India. And he very kindly sent us a message. So this is Geshe Tashi.
I'm extremely happy to hear that good news. That is Jamyang Buddhist Center in Leeds managed to purchase a great potential building. So that is really amazing good news. And I was asked to say a few words on the opening ceremony day. So I would like to say a few words. First, it is really from my heart, I would like to congratulate to all the people who work very hard to hold this building, particularly the director, current director, Carrie. I know very well. He has put so much effort to keep running the center, and then last year or even year before, searched to find a permanent, a building to Jamyang. I'm not saying a permanent building, it doesn't exist. But not renting, which has been the case all this previous years. And when the current building come into business, to sell, he showed me some of the photos and so forth, and his hard work and the local people's support and wider, the communities, financial supports, emotional supports, all these hard work, you have put together now, you have the result in front of you, and the building sounds very, very, have amazing potential in the future, although initially may need lots of hard work, not just the paying the mortgage, but also making the building workable for the classes and the retreats and other events. I feel, first of all, the Leeds city is situated in a very important area, important in the sense very much hub of the north of England and Scotland, of course. In this 21st century, we don't need centers in every city, and which is also unrealistic. But we need, the centers in certain, the important places like Leeds in the north, or southwest like Bath or Bristol, or in London, or even further south like Salisbury, or even further. So, all these years, I've been thinking about the Leeds. If we have a place, good place, great potential place in the Leeds, this will, be extremely helpful for not just in our generation, for many generations to come. So, it is very, happy time to manage to purchase that building. Now, being able to hold the building, being able to buy the building is the first step. There are many other work need to be done, and I have confidence that local people and wider Buddhist community or other community will support to make work this building for the purpose. The purpose is, to create a community place. Not only the Buddhist people, but there's, in Leeds, around Leeds, people who like to come there to rest, to have some kind of calm, relax, friendly place. Elderly, young children, and then of course, the people who are interested in Buddha Dharma, they can come to the classes, retreats, meditations. So that is the purpose of purchasing, I think, purchasing the building. And, so to reach that level, it will take time. It will take time, step by step, with the dedication, with the commitment, it will work. A few years ago, nobody has confidence being able to buy this kind of building. Now, it is reality, fact. So therefore, you know, coming months, years, decades, put our effort, put your effort to make it work. So therefore, on this great occasion, the opening ceremony, opening day, you know, His Highness Limrinpoche is going to come, which is very auspicious, great honor to the center, to the cities, to the country. Enjoy your time with him. I'm sure he will give you great teachings and advice. Take that opportunity. So that's all. That's all. And if there are good foods, delicious foods, enjoy that food and that ceremony day. And you know, I'm well. And my job is not easy job. It is very challenging job, but I feel very, you know, happy that I have, you know, at least I'm trying to contribute something back to the community where I come from. And great honor that His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the monastery, you know, gave me this opportunity. So I'm very happy here. Of course, I can't, you know, live here forever because I'm holding a British passport. So in the government will not give me a visa. So it's like some kind of what in the UK we have saying indefinite visa. That's almost impossible to obtain that kind of visa. So when I feel, okay, I've done enough in this community, I don't know for how long, but then I have to come back to UK. And also I'm thinking about to visit sometime next year, because His Holiness Dalai Lama told me my first visit to him after I was appointed as an abbot of Meridian Monastery. First thing he said, I should go back to Europe, to the UK, to keep my connection to the people that I have, you know, connection for many years. He said that is very important, so I'm holding that in my heart. But this year is very hard, very difficult, because there are so many projects. But I will do that sometime next year. So I will see you next year, and I'm looking forward to see the building. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Okay, and we shall also hold him to that we expect him to come next year. So I'd now like to introduce David Lascelles, who's the Earl of Harwood, and he's very kindly accepted to be our patron for a number of years now. Thank you, Dave.
Get to my feet. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Actually, Kerry and Gessie Tashi said a lot of the things I was going to say. It's a problem of coming on third, I guess. You're stolen your best lines. But anyway, to repeat some of those things, I'm delighted and very honoured to be here for this opening today. It's very auspicious to that day. First time I've seen the inside of this building, actually, and the transformation really is amazing. And huge thanks, I think, are due from all of us here, to everybody who's worked so hard to get it ready and looking so good for today and for the future. It is a far cry from the first time I visited the centre, which was when it was an Armley. And Armley then, a little bit now, wasn't actually always the most pleasant or the most welcoming part of Leeds. I remember always having to be sure that I parked my car under a street light and hope that the hubcaps were still there when I came back again. So it's a big change from those days. And then, of course, into the city centre, the various offices there, which worked very well for a while. But then the big ambition to move here. And I think it's a testament not just to the work that's gone on to making this place, but to the growing presence that the centre has had in Leeds over those years. It's been difficult times, for many people, both politically and personally. And Jamyang, I think, has become increasingly in the city an oasis, somewhere calm, a sanctuary, and a generator of positive energy in difficult times. I think we're all particularly honoured that the first teachings here will be by His Eminence Ling Rinpoche. Now, I was very lucky enough to meet his predecessor, the previous Ling Rinpoche, in 1977 at the Monlam Chenmo in Drepung, which he presided over with His Eminence Trijang Rinpoche in the presence of many hundreds of monks. I was in South India with a small film crew making a documentary, and we just finished filming in the Tibetan settlements, then still quite new, in Balakupe and in Mungod. We were lucky enough to be granted an audience with Ling Rinpoche, and I remember our young Tibetan monk translator being so overawed to be in the presence of such an eminent master, the teacher of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, no less, that he almost completely lost the power of speech, which in a translator, of course, is a bit of a problem. I'm very happy that Rinpoche will be coming on Monday to Harwood to visit the stupa there. I know some of you have been there. I've been researching for a book about the making of the stupa for many years now. Some of you have been sick of hearing me talking about it. I wonder if it ever will become a reality. I came across this quote I just wanted to share with you today during my research about the benefits of circumambulation. It's a quote from the sutras. 100 maidens of Cambodia, wearing jewelled earrings with circlets of gold upon their arms and adorned with rings and necklaces of the finest gold. 100 elephants, snowy white, robust and broad-backed, adorned with gold and jewels, carrying their great trunks above their heads like ploughshares. They could not even begin to equal 1/16th part of the value of one step of one circumambulation. So come and circumambulate, but please don't bring your elephant. Taking on a responsibility for a building like this is a big thing. It's potentially something very positive, if the purpose and the motivation is right, and that certainly is the case with this building. But it's fraught inevitably with all the traps and snares of samsara, bills, building leaks, making ends meet, and so on. So, as well as being grateful to everyone who's helped create it, in whatever capacity, I think what we must all do, in our turn, is to use it well and frequently to help it thrive and survive. For our case, for our sakes, for the sake of the local community, and for the sake of everyone who may use it in the future. So, good luck to this building, good luck to us all. Thank you for listening.
I'd now like to ask David Midgley, who is the founder of Jamyang Leeds and its first director.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone. It's so amazing to look out and see this after 25 years since we started, actually in my front room, not Jan's. Just to put the details of that story straight, what happened is that I had been practicing in this tradition for some years in the early 80s, and as most of you are probably aware, there was an unfortunate split that happened, so the centre that I was attending was no longer part of FPNT, so I was out in the wilderness being a disciple of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I moved to Leeds and in 1988, and a couple of years later I began to have the thought, maybe there should be a centre in Leeds. And it actually happened, the seed was planted at Geshe Tashi's first teaching in England in 1994. Before he became the resident teacher at Jamyang Centre London, he was invited to teach what was then the annual European Lamrim course at Elaine Brooks Centre in Herefordshire. And that's where I met Jan Metcalf, who was born in Leeds, but had been running the bookshop at Jamyang London. And her sister, Joan, had been coming down to visit her and wondered what all this funny Tibetan Buddhist stuff was. And Jan said, could she come and talk to me and ask me questions? So that's how it started with myself and Joan Sowry She's not here, is she? Joan's not here. Sadly, Joan was a fantastic support for the first number of years. She ran a pub in Driglington with her husband, and she used to cook most wonderful lunches, so it was a great feature. And now I'm glad to see that tradition is being re-established here. We've got marvellous buffet lunch. We always used to have really good food at our meetings there. So it grew very gradually. I think probably one of the very first 3 or 4 people who come is here today. Bob Smith's here from 23 years ago, I think, first started coming. So I'm seeing lots of old faces who I haven't seen for a very long time. It's a delight to see you all. It was a delight to see so many Tibetans here this morning. And just to see this building, even though I was here yesterday, when I walked in this morning and it is now a Dharma Centre, it was a really special feeling after all these years. And I think it's, although Lama Zopa told me in 1999 that we should buy a building of this sort of scale. Well, there were 6 of us. We found that a bit too challenging, unfortunately. And I want to say, how profoundly grateful I am to Kerry, not only for all this dedicated work that he's put in over the past 3 years, actually, not just last year since he found the building, but leading up to that, all of the groundwork that's been put in to make this possible, but also for the vision that he showed, seeing the potential of this building and battling with the trustees. It was a quite unpopular decision at first. You're going to move to that area in that building. But I support from the start, actually, particularly because of the support that Geshe Tashi gave. He endorsed Kerry's judgment that this was a really positive potential in this building. And I think today we can see that in spades. This is just a small part of the whole building. So eventually, the potential here is absolutely enormous. It's incredible. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of commitment. It's going to be challenging. But I'm so happy that we are here in this, what's notoriously quite a difficult area. It's an area of great need. And I think we can really contribute something very, very positive to this local community that has great need, but also to the city of Leeds. Until a couple of years ago, I was, apart from teaching here and being on the trustees and so on, most of my work was involved with trying to do something about climate change. 2 years ago, I went to the Kalachakra initiation with His Holiness Dalai Lama in Bodh Gaya, and something that I saw there about the way that His Holiness is operating and the depth of what he's doing, and I began to see that although climate change and many other kind of urgent environmental and social problems, that need work, but underneath it all, what our society is most desperately lacking is an understanding of compassion, and the compassion that needs to underpin the whole way that our society operates and our policy making and our whole society. So I have seen over the years, so it's not only the amazing work that he's done with the Tibetan community and with the deep teachings of Tibetan Buddhism that he's brought into the world, but also seeing the need to translate the essence of those teachings into something that people can relate to, whether or not they have an interest in Buddhism, whether or not they have that perspective of rebirth, or they relate to the images or the philosophy or anything. But the essential principles, which are just compassion and wisdom, completely universal principles. And so over the past few years, especially this idea that those who are really serious about it, we need to study those Tibetan teachings, we need to practice them, we need to keep them alive. And that's what we want to do here, eventually in the upper story of this building. But downstairs, I think Kerry explained, this part of the building, when the upstairs is ready, we want to make that as available as possible to everybody in the city for all of those kind of activities, whether it be secular mindfulness, secular compassion training, counselling, psychotherapy. We're developing training courses for business. We will be working with local agencies, people with mental health issues and so on. We've had some fantastic results already, using our understanding of Buddhism to convey in a way that those people can relate to and understand, and this is a huge benefit. So I'm absolutely thrilled that this project has come to reality, and I think, you know, many people, as Gary said, you know, he's highlighted some of the people that have done fantastic work here, and there's more to be done. But I do want to give a special honour to Kerry, because I think showing that vision and seeing it through, and the dedication, commitment that he's shown, thank you so much. And thank you all very much, because I think almost everyone here has contributed something significant to this project, and just by being here today, you're also contributing. But you can see there's endless opportunities, whether you can contribute financially, it's absolutely vital, whether you can come volunteer, just come and attend the teachings, you know. I don't know, you kind of shouldn't really be making a charitable appeal to you, come and patronise our Buddhist teachings, but I think, you know, sometimes I wonder whether people really see the full benefit, because you know, we put on the wonderful teachings here. So I do encourage you, if you can, to make the time and come and be part of that, because that, of course, is in a way is our core activity. You know, where I mean, you all understand, I think, the extraordinary human value of the teachings from this Tibetan tradition, which is under threat profoundly, especially at the moment. Things in Tibet situation is very grave, and as Onis said, you know, the survival of Tibetan Buddhism is in the balance all the time. So in whatever way you're able to support, either by, you know, participating in the teachings and practice yourself, by supporting the Tibetan community in many different ways, and by supporting the centre, you'll be helping to keep that precious jewel of spiritual teaching alive. Thank you so much. It's a great delight to see you. Welcome to our new home.
And now I'd like to ask Ken Lunn, who's the chair of our trustees, who's kept me on the straight and narrow over the last few years. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kerry. Yeah, I only came to do lunchtime meditation about 8 years ago. So I've learned an awful lot about karma in the last 8 years. And certainly just turning up at St. Paul Street about 8 years ago and just sitting there and enjoying the space and just letting somebody guide me through a meditation, I kind of would never have expected to be standing here. The other thing, yeah, about karma is don't be the last to speak, because everybody said the things that you might have planned. But there's a few things I would like to say. First of all, David's already said, you know, what a wonderful job Kerry has done. But I've got to know Kerry extremely well over the last, is it only 3 years? Gosh, I feel like I've known him at least a whole lifetime, possibly have known him a few. I didn't know I was going to be giving a speech today. So it's probably a good job I didn't prepare, because I wouldn't have to tear up the piece of paper now. But I was talking to Jeannie in the shop, and I was taking photographs, and Kerry had said the other day, could you just... Now, I'm just warning anybody, when you hear those 3 words, could you just... And Jeannie was saying, yeah, he said that to me too. How many of you have heard, could you just? Yeah, a lot of hands, yeah. Yeah, well, so he came in and said, could you just give a speech? Yeah, okay, so I'm here. But a few personal things. There's a certain degree of nervousness about doing anything like this. My job as chair is to referee. And it's been certainly a challenge to referee over the last 2 or 3 years. Well, since I took on the chair responsibility, because 4 or 5 years ago we didn't actually have any paid staff, and then we hired Kerry and then Fiona, who've done a wonderful job creating a centre which had really outgrown its space. We were really crammed in St. Paul Street. There was very little else we could do more in that space. We couldn't open it up permanently, we couldn't have a front door, we couldn't have a cafe. So there's a whole heap of things that suddenly become possible just by moving into a different space. And I know there's been a lot of concerns about moving to Holbeck, and it was actually a very difficult decision. But one of the trustees, I won't embarrass her by naming who it was, said something that changed my mind, which is we're about compassion, and where needs compassion? And St Paul Street, yes, it's in the middle of the solicitors and legal district, they need a lot of compassion. But here there's an awful lot of need, and I think it's a real opportunity. But when I came in this morning, Denise said, what time should we arrive? I said, well, just after 10:30 because, I don't want to be the first there. And then we walk in and find there are 70, 80, 90 people in the building. And this is not about a building. This is about community. And the building offers the opportunity for community. But just to see that we've had 150 volunteers, how on earth did that happen in the last few months? Come to help here. That's community. So it's the people, not the building. The building enables the people to come together, but it really is the community that's going to make this work. And I've no idea where the karma's going to take me or this place in the next 8 years. But I think the thanks are there not just to Kerry. There's so many people who've put their hearts and souls, especially over the last few weeks, into getting to here. And there's an interesting journey ahead. So I'd just like to thank you all, really. Just by turning up, you're making a statement, and you're really helping the centre develop. So I think now I can perhaps, this is the first time I haven't spoken before Kerry, so I think he's got all his revenge in one day. But is there anything else, Kerry? I'll just pass it.
I do have to say a big thank you to all the trustees. So many thank yous and so many hours and dedication and I just want to say thank you for the taking the risk. I mean, llamas are in a different sphere; they can see things, and perhaps we can't. But we're just on our little level here, and thinking, what are we doing, and is it going to work? And so I know we've kind of moved into this massive space, and there's a lot of concern. But thank you for being brave. Thank you for going with us. Thank you for supporting it, and do continue to come and enjoy our classes. If you need any help throughout the day, just look for people with the little badges. We're happy to help. I just wondered if Fiona's around now to explain what happens for the buffet lunch. Could someone just find Fiona for me? Basically, my job here is just to be the guardian or the caretaker for Lama Zopa Centre. This is his organisation, and I'm just one passing through for a little while. We have asked Lama Zopa if he'll come as soon as he can to give some teachings here and bless us with his speech. He's currently in Madrid, isn't it, where he's now giving teachings? So it's not far. He could just pop over if he can hear us.
Never know.
I had an email this week from a couple of people who, they must have just been in Europe somewhere, and they said they just had a private interview with Lama Zopa, and he said, oh, well, if you're looking for something to do now, this is a bit like me, and he says, why don't you go and volunteer at Jamang Leeds or at Land of Joy? It's like, So Lama Zopa is thinking about it, so he is here and he does know what we're doing, and we'd like to request him to please come here as soon as possible and teach us and come and visit the new centre whenever he's ready. Thank you all very much, everybody. Is Fiona there ready to explain the buffet?
Might be busy.
Hello. Okay, so the buffet is a mixture of vegan. A bit loud. Oh, okay. It's a mixture of vegan and vegetarian, and there's wheat-free as well, gluten-free. So we've marked all the dishes. But as it's a self-service buffet, please be aware there will be some cross-contamination from people putting the spoons in the wrong dishes. If you have special dietary requirements, we have a few dishes in the freezer in the kitchen, so just come to the kitchen. But otherwise, buffet's on the side there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Back here for 2 o'clock for Ling Rinpoche's public talk. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your lunch.